Hello and welcome to another episode of ABA Mom. I am your host, Allie, a board certified behavior analyst and mom of five. And today, our guest is right here in Flagler County, and she is both a mom and author of Decode Your Dollars. And her name is Priscilla Henry. Priscilla, we're so excited to have you today.
Thank you so much for having me. This is an exciting experience.
Yeah. No, I'm very excited. So, your book is Decode Your Dollars.
Mhm.
What inspired you to create this book?
That is a long story,
Okay.
but I will try to keep it kind of brief, but it's not brief. So, Decode Your Dollars is a passion project of mine. I created it for my son, Jaden. He is 21 years old and he's had dyslexia his whole life. We didn't find out until fifth grade. He got kind of pushed along early elementary school years. And finally, when he got diagnosed with specific learning disorder, because that's what they call it in the school districts. They don't call it dyslexia. He was able to get proper reading instruction and he made amazing gains. So proud of him for what he did. Um, and that was over at a special school out in the Tampa Bay area called Pepin Academies. They have 3 campuses and they only work with children with disabilities. And it's amazing charter school out there. But then we moved to Flagler County. And while we were here, unfortunately, Jaden went into cardiac arrest. And not once, but
That's
twice.
so scary. So scary.
And the second one that he went through ended him in the hospital on life support for 2 weeks. And not only did he have to learn how to walk and talk and eat everything, he had to learn how to read again. And so we had multiple hospital homebound teachers come to our home and amazing women. When I say they were amazing, they were amazing. But we noticed that Jaden needed to have reading instruction all over again. He showed huge regression in his reading. And so we were starting at square one. And at 18 years old, you don't want to be learning on an elementary school level, basically.
Right.
And so, unfortunately, there's not enough out there for young adults like my son that teach the itty gritty of phonics. And so they did the best they could. And he made gains, but I just know from firsthand watching him, it wasn't what he was passionate about, right? Like you don't want to read about cats. You don't want to read about baseball when that doesn't interest you. And so I decided to write my own workbook for him. And so this was my passion project. I studied the Orton Gillingham principles and I used what I knew from the school district to create this program that uses money. So everyone in the world needs money. And what
Right.
teenager is not like, I want my own money, right?
Yeah.
So I used what I knew to make a workbook for him. So this workbook talks about what words are and, breaking them down into their sounds. And then it goes into a reading passage and then comprehension. So it uses all those. And that's what it is. It's for my baby boy. And
No,
that's,
I think that's beautiful.
yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that story and how scary that is. So not once, but twice he had cardiac
Yes.
arrest. Like that's very scary. How long was he in recovery for that?
So, my goodness, it was a long journey. So
Yeah.
he was in the hospital for about a month and a half, give or take. So it happened in August. And we did not get home until October. He was on life support and he was up in Jacksonville and they transferred him to outpatient rehab. And he stood there for a few weeks and then he came home. And then he was home for about a year before we thought about even attempting to send him back to school. So he did all the therapies, occupational therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy. He did all of them twice a week for each one. So I was at a doctor's appointment every day, Monday through Saturday. His physical therapist was amazing and he would pick up a day on Saturdays to see him just because of what he needed. And so every day was therapies. Every day was some type
Wow.
of
That's
teacher
intense.
or therapist in our home or at a facility covering.
Wow. Yeah, that's intense, and that's a lot on you as a parent, but thank goodness for those therapists, all those different therapists that were able
Yes.
to come to your home and help and assist. So did you create this workbook during that time when he was in recovery?
No. So, he's still in recovery, and he's always
Okay.
going to need a little extra help, but I probably started this, mm, late 2023, early 2024. I started thinking about it, started processing it, and then 2025, I said, I'm gonna write it. I'm gonna do this. I'm just gonna sit down and I'm gonna
Yeah.
make it basically a full program just for him. And so I spent all of last year sitting down, researching, trying to write passages, and then, kind of going back and forth of how to make it so it's not too babyish. Like, do I put crossword puzzles in there, or do I add coloring pages? Like, do we make it more creative, or do we
Right.
just stick to basics? And so
Yeah.
it was a lot of back and forth of how I created it. And then finally, I was like, I'm just going to launch. I'm just going to share this with the world. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey.
I feel like with most projects, it's like it never feels quite ready until you're like, it's just time. Like you just push yourself to do
Yes.
it.
Yes.
How did you find that balance in both being like a parent and an educator, author, like in developing this workbook? Like, where did you find the time and the balance for that?
There's no right balance. I will tell you that. So I did it right along with my kids. So I homeschool Jaden and my middle child, and I have a kindergartner this year. So
Oh,
while she
wow. I
was
didn't know
at
you had one so young
Yes,
too.
yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So
You're like me. I have all different ages.
yes. So last year she was in pre-K. So I had a little bit more time, and that's why I was probably able to be developed the way that it has, because she was at school at least half of the day, and now she's, in school full day. But yeah, so at the kitchen table, sitting down with them between lessons and between, going to appointments and therapies. And we had a great ABA therapist who came to our house for a year last year, and she sat down right next to me and Jaden, and we would talk about everything. So Jaden did a entrepreneur type class last year. So while I was writing this finances, I was also saying like, hey, maybe you should have a side hustle. Let's not just focus on, what you can get taught through voc rehab. Let's kind of see if you can create something for yourself. And so his ABA therapist would push him, and I would be kind of typing away. And he had an occupational therapist. She still comes to the home. She's amazing. She's here local. And she sits down, and, we brainstorm, because as a therapist, you see different things of how kids learn. And it was a great way for me to work on what I wanted to work on, but also get feedback from other people who work with children who potentially have dyslexia or autism, and how they learn. And so it was a nice balance there, but a little chaotic, but good. Like a good
Yeah.
chaos. Yeah.
Yeah. I could see the stress. And I know too, just from the provider standpoint, like going into people's home and sometimes like parents,
Mhm.
like when they have so many different providers in their home, it can be very stressful. So just to have all these different people, but I'm glad that they were so helpful and wonderful.
Yes.
Like,
Oh my
it's
God.
great. Yeah.
Every single person who's come into this home has been amazing in their own way. It's nice to see them in home, because now they get to see what his real life is, right? It was really, really funny, because one of the hospital homebound teachers that was here with us at one point worked at the elementary school while my son was still in elementary school, before I decided to homeschool him as well. And so it was nice to see the other side, right? The other side of
Mhm.
what is available in the school district, but what you might have to do at home. And it was a really good experience, and still it's an experience, and you basically become family
Yeah.
with them, I will say. So this is a little side thing. I guess there's a law within ABA world where you cannot be friends with families for 2 years
Yep.
afterwards. And
Yes.
I will tell you, I'm a little upset. So Ashley, if you're watching this right now, 2 years, counting. Like, it's been a couple months, okay? We're on the countdown, and I am waiting to be best friends with you. So, that's a little
Yeah.
side note.
So I love that. I love that too. There's so many parents I work with where we discontinued services and I'm like, I can't be your Facebook friend yet, but I would love to. But yeah, it is a
Yeah.
part of the ethics code. And I think part of that, I know we're getting a little off track, but part of that, I think because they could always be your client again, and I guess they kind of our board decided like that 2 year is kind of a long enough time that, because that does happen, like, they're like, "Okay,
Mhm.
like, we actually need service again." So I guess it just kinda gives you that length of time. So, Ashley, I hope
Yeah.
you guys become friends
I hope
soon.
so
I
too.
mean,
Yeah.
less than 2 years now, you got a
Yeah.
couple months already, so
Yes. So, and that's kind of not fair also for these kids that age out of ABA, right?
yeah.
Because
Yes,
he's
because I think that should
21,
be an exception. Yeah.
right? He's 21. Like he aged out. So you can't repeat services unless I pay out of pocket, but that's neither
Right.
here nor there. But um you know, I don't know.
Yeah,
But
when they age out, that should be I would think so. I mean, our board doesn't have it written that way, but I would think that that could be a change to the rule. That should kind of be an
right?
exception for sure.
Yeah. So he aged out,
Okay.
but a little too cold turkey for me, okay? A little too cold turkey
Right.
for me.
Yeah.
But I've
No,
been
it's hard when you build that rapport. That's
let me
definitely
tell
hard.
you, we have been blessed with an amazing, amazing team that
Great.
works with Jaden and with our family. And, they really, when you're here in home, I don't know, if everyone has that environment at home, but we are fortunate that in this home, that the therapists who come here, we treat them as our family. And we love them, and you get so close, and it's just an amazing experience. I will say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that that's wonderful and that's really important to
Hmm.
have. So I know that, like you said, he is dyslexic and
Hmm.
also has an autism diagnosis. So a lot of
Yes.
people don't realize, and it's so common to have like a dual diagnosis, but a lot of people don't
Mhm.
realize that you can have dyslexia and autism and that they can co-occur. So what
Mhm.
should families kind of, from your experience, understand about some of that overlap?
Well, I don't think a lot of people understand that dyslexia is so prominent in our environment. 1 in 5 people have dyslexia. So,
Wow. I didn't realize it was
yes,
so high. Wow.
1 in 5 people. So that's 20% of the population, right? Have some form of dyslexia. And then there's not only dyslexia, there's dysgraphia, which is the writing form of it. There's dyscalculia, which is math, dyspraxia. So there is a whole slew of different diagnoses, and I don't think a lot of people understand that you can have autism and dyslexia. So, and I think that's a big issue. It's a real big issue within the education world because you're going to see it on both ends. So,
Okay.
you have two different types of kids who they're on the different ends of the spectrum. So you might have someone who's a level 1 autistic child who also has dyslexia, but because they are gifted or considered twice exceptional within the school district, they are able to mask their difficulties in reading in other ways. So that is one side of that spectrum. Then you have the other side of the spectrum where now, if you're considered cognitively disabled and have dyslexia, now the school districts, and this is unfortunate because this is firsthand for me, is that you can't tell me that a child is cognitively disabled and they can learn how to read. Which one is it? Are they cognitively disabled or are they smart enough, pretty much is what they're saying, to learn how to read? Instead of saying that this child is cognitively disabled, he has, level 3 autism or level 2 autism, and he also has a specific learning disorder. And on top of that, they can learn how to read if they have the proper tools. And I think that's a big gap in our educational programs is that they're getting lost in the shuffle. And unfortunately, when you're in early grades, they say, well, we don't test for it until they're in 3rd grade. 3rd grade's too late. That's way too far.
Right.
You can notice dyslexia as early as kindergarten. There are certain things that the school districts need to learn that you can have autism and dyslexia. Dyslexia is the number one learning difference within all humans. So that is a big misconception among everyone at this moment.
Right. And it does slip through the cracks. It does seem that a lot of
Mhm.
testing is done at I don't know why 3rd grade is like the set age, but the state of Florida is very set on 3rd grade. And I don't know, I'm sure that maybe there's some kind of rhyme or reason behind it, but I don't know why that is the grade that was picked. But yeah, you're right. I think the
Yeah.
earlier that we evaluate, the better. I mean, I don't
Mhm.
do any of the diagnosing myself, but
Mhm.
as far as and the school psychologist, I think it's always good to just have that, even if it's just like, show signs of possibly having dyslexia. So that way they can just get that help earlier.
So the other bad thing, right? And this
Mhm.
is how these kids fall through the cracks, is that they have a diagnosis. They are supposed to reevaluate every 3 years, right? So you have a child, let's say in kindergarten, they had an evaluation, they go in with a developmental delay, or they go in with an autism diagnosis and they have an IEP for that. And every 3 years, you're supposed to do a reevaluation of the child.
Mhm.
But you can get away with not doing that evaluation if they have portfolio. So you kind of, oh, I have data, they continue. And so that's how
Right.
that child who maybe in third grade needs another diet, full really evaluation gets pushed through because nothing's changed. We still see the same things and so on and so forth. And now you end up with someone like Jaden who didn't get diagnosed until the end of fifth grade. And that's
Long time.
because it's a long time because, oh, he's autistic. Well, he has ADHD, so he's not paying attention in class. He's gazing off. Well, no, 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 no. That's not how this works. I need to see the data of what you've done and what resources you're using in order to help my child. And so a lot of parents really need to be asking for that data and making sure that their child is being reevaluated, especially in that third grade year. So if your child's in first grade and you know they're going to be up for a reevaluation, make sure they are getting reevaluated.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's very important. I just not in Flagler County at a different school district that I
Mhm,
was working at. There was a child who was in a behavior unit, so it wasn't,
mhm,
seemingly pretty high functioning, had an autism diagnosis, school autism diagnosis. And the teacher was like, he's not taking any notes. He's not doing, and this by this time he's in sixth grade. And I said, that's really interesting. So I sat down with him and I was like, "Do you know what this says?" Like, he couldn't read it. He didn't know. He
mm-mm,
didn't know at all. He didn't know what was written on the board. He could copy some of the words, things like that, but he couldn't read it. He couldn't understand, decode it. So
mhm.
it was really sad to see that for all the way from kindergarten to sixth grade, they just were like, "Oh, he can't read." And then they came and they did reading intervention with him, but that's a lot of years without any support or help. It somehow slipped through the cracks.
It's
Yeah,
it's tough. It's tough.
that's really rough.
I've lived it. My sons lived it. And I will say that both my boys have dyslexia, dysgraphia. So my Jaden, my oldest, he has dyslexia, dysgraphia. My middle child is on that side that I was saying that he is level 1, high functioning, autistic, twice exceptional. He has a very high IQ, but he has dysgraphia. And so he can read novels. Like we've read Harry Potter together. He's amazing. But when it's time for him to put his thoughts onto paper, he has a horrible time. And that's why I ended up pulling him from school because he was in third grade and he wasn't getting access to the resources he needed. Now, they did try, but he was in intervention with children who had dyslexia. So he didn't need that type of support. He needed something a little bit different to help him get his thoughts down onto paper. And so that's when we pulled him, and he's been doing great with his classes, and we've found what he needed, and now he's making great gains. He actually skipped fifth grade.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
So
Yeah, that's incredible. So, why is structural literacy so important for older students and not just the early readers? And I think we've touched on that a little bit, but why do you think because I think that, if you miss it, right? If we miss that gap, we miss the testing, like now you're in fifth or sixth grade. So why is it so important now?
So this book I wrote
Mhm.
it using financial literacy so that children are exposed to real life content. So when you have a high schooler or someone like my son who is, now in his 20s, who is only reading, let's say at a fourth or fifth grade level, the resources available are really not interesting, right? Like they've checked out.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, okay, yes, I'm going to read this sentence about going shopping with my mom and, Tim is going to a baseball game, or they're going to read these stories, but it's not going to click. It's not
Right.
giving them any incentive to want to
There's no
learn how to
interest.
read. Exactly. Right. So with financial literacy, you're taking a real world concept. right? So, earlier in his years, my son was really into a trading card game and I want more packs. I want to buy more packs. Well, can you afford it? What do you have to do in order to have money in order to afford it? Before he had jobs, well, you have chores. Every chore you do, I'll give you money. And so how do we do that? And then also things that we didn't learn in school. What is credit? Like, honestly, what is credit? Who says that you have good credit and you have bad credit? And why is it that if you have zero credit and no credit history, you don't qualify for a credit card because you've never had a credit card, but you
Right.
need a credit card to do certain things.
Get
So,
credit.
right? Come on. So we didn't learn this stuff in school. We kind of just winged it. And, then all of a sudden you're in your 30s and you're like, man, so, so I decided to take real world finances and make it so that he can understand what's going to happen in the future. Why does he need money? How does he earn money? What's a bank account? What are the different types of bank accounts? What do I need in order to open a bank account? And then if I want to buy a car, am I going to get a loan? Am I going to have to pay interest on that loan? And why is it smart to pay it off faster? Or what happens if you don't pay it off? So all of
Right.
those real life things that everyone needs to know, not just me and you, everyone. And how can I make it so that we can teach someone who doesn't know how to read or reads at an elementary level have access to this information? So that's why I created this first workbook, to kind of just break down those words and teach it to him and use it
I think
so that
that's
when he's
great.
independent, he has it.
No, I think that is amazing. And honestly, I think all teenagers, adults, even older adults, like not just the young adults, could really
Mhm,
benefit from that in those lessons because
mhm.
he's almost 18, my oldest.
Yes, I know
He
him.
was
Okay.
Yeah, okay, yeah, from Penguin Project. He was on a trip for theater because he's big into theater, so they were at States, and, he had some money, and he ordered Uber Eats, and I'm like, "Okay, like, every once in a while, something like that's okay, you need to
Mhm,
eat." It was $17 for a snack wrap meal from McDonald's, and I'm like and then he did it another time, he ordered Popeyes, and it was something outrageous, like 25 bucks or something like that.
mhm,
So, in the span of 4 days, he already spent his money
mhm,
because he was ordering these, like, outrageous orders that you go through the drive-through, and it's, like, $10 for a meal.
mhm.
So, I'm like, that concept is
Yes.
so important, so I think that concept is very important, and I think even
Mhm,
just for my kids, it's important for everyone, and like you said, like, just even for me and you, like, those are important
mhm.
concept. There's adults my age that still don't have that concept of what happens if you don't pay on your car.
Right. Oh,
That's an
yeah.
important consequence. Like, you'll learn the
You
consequence
will.
of that if
You
you don't
will.
make the Yep. So how does can you just kind of give, like, a lesson? Like, what would be a typical activity that you have in your workbook?
So I wrote this basing it off of what it looks like in a classroom, right? So you have Orton Gillingham resources, right? So Orton Gillingham is the gold standard of teaching phonics. It is using a multisensory approach, right? So you touch it, you hear it, you say it. So what I did is I made each chapter about 6 lessons long. And in the beginning of each chapter, we have words that are going to be in the passages going forward. So we first start with your sounds. So you have your consonants, vowels, your blends, your digraphs, and it shows it in different colors so that you can see these words broken up and how it would look if you were to spell them out, what they are. And then I went to morphology. So, for example, you have the word employee. So we have employee, employer, employee. So we're going to morph that word into different words. And then after that, I did syllable breakdowns. So, for example, if the word was investment, so you have investment, and we're breaking it down into syllables. And then we have a passage of reading and then comprehension. And I did that for each passage. So there's 3 comprehension questions, some that are going to be recall. So, what did you just read? And can you answer this question? Some of them are more abstract, kind of like if you took out a loan and you didn't pay, what would happen? Right? That type of
Right.
thing. And then I added something called a brain boost, which is really just a dopamine rush. So it's very simple answers. So kind of like, for example, what's a credit score and what's a great credit score, right? And it's 800. Put an X on what a great credit score is because you know that answer is going to immediately make you feel good. So
Yeah.
in the book,
Yeah.
each passage has this kind of easy question at the end to kind of just boost your confidence. At
Yeah.
least I know I got one right.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we call that in ABA, like our term would be like behavior momentum. Like we're gonna start with something that you already know and then
Yeah.
like build your way up. So like you already know that a credit score is 800. Great job. Like on to like some harder questions and they get a little harder as they go.
Yes.
So I love
So
that. You're building that confidence first. That's great.
each passage is broken up that way so that you read the passage and there is a words per minute on there. So if they're reading it to a teacher or to their parent, the parent can time them of how long it took them to read the passage. And so that you can kind of get an idea of their fluency while they're reading. And then the comprehension, real life questions that go along with each passage. And we do that every chapter. So there's 11 chapters in the book, and every chapter has that same breakdown of words. And then in the back of the book, I added the tiles that I used in those lessons so that if you don't have some type of manipulation at home that you can use, not manipulation, I don't know, manipulative, excuse me,
You
right?
got
That's
it.
my dyslexia coming through. So manipulative to use to break down those words, you can build them. And so you can cut them out, you can copy them onto cardstock, so then you can cut them out, and then you can use them to build the words. So it has your blends, your digraphs, your vowel teams. It's all there in the back of the book so that you can use it with each lesson so that the kids are touching it along with making the words.
Yeah, I love that. I love to use manipulatives. I think that's such a great way to learn. I mean, we all learn differently, but I think it's such a
Yes.
great way and it's a different tool to learn with. So I love that you're using that too.
Yes.
What money skills do you believe are most essential for independent adulthood?
So, I mean, you have to think about what it's like to be an adult. And our kids, we want them to be able to be a little self sufficient. We're thinking about neurodivergence. It's okay to have them have support, but if we can teach them early enough to be a little independent with their finances, it's going to make their life so much easier. So I do believe that we should help make them learn how to make a choice. So if you have two items that you want, let's look at the price. How can we save money? Which one's the better option? So, for example, if you're going to go to the supermarket and you want to buy juice, well, this juice is on sale. You're going to get two 64 ounces for $5 versus one 32 ounce for $4.99. Which one's the better option? So I think that's very important for our kids to learn. They're going to eventually have bills of their own to pay. How do we pay those? How often do we have to pay those? And how do we have to budget our needs versus our wants and making sure that they know the difference between the two? I think that's very important for them to know. I think when you become an adult, I became an adult a lot faster than other people. But, those are skills that we're not taught really, right? We kind of just wing it until, we make it basically. But if we can help our kids as early as possible, it would just give them more chance to succeed. So that means taking them to a supermarket with you, have them help you make choices. What items are you getting? Is it within your budget? Um, have them pay for it for you. Make sure you're counting your change when you get it back. Little things. So just kind of including them in your everyday life. I know as a parent of neurodivergent children, I tend to want to do everything for them. It's faster if I
Right.
do it myself, right? And that's a part of our life. It's faster if I just do it. But that's not how they're going to learn. We have to be able to include them into our life and make choices so that they can learn and they can succeed and be more self-sufficient. And that also they don't get taken advantage of. So when you're dealing with children who are on the spectrum or who have dyslexia, it's very easy to be manipulated. I can't think of the word, manipulated by someone. And so I think that's something that we have to teach them. And with dyslexia, it's easy to flip numbers. Well, okay, I paid for this item. I was supposed to get $41, but I only got $14, but I counted it. That's what it looks like, right? We
Right.
don't want that. We want to make sure that they know the difference of what they paid for and what they're getting back. Then
Yeah.
we also want to make sure that they understand, oh, They told me my bill was going to be $500, but they charged me $700, and then they pay it and they've overpaid for something or they pay twice for something. So it's making sure that they have routines in place to make sure they're not getting taken advantage of by somebody else who may have more financial awareness than them.
Right.
Or let's say, for example, signing up for a credit card that maybe they shouldn't have. Or the one that every adult probably deals with is student loans, right? You'll be paying on those student loans your whole life,
Always.
your
Right.
whole life, right? And so
Yep.
do you need to take out a student loan, or could you potentially plan and save and maybe pay a portion of that upfront, do a different type of payment agreement? So that's all things that, we have to kind of look at and our children should know. And I hope that our children would do better than our parents did with us. I think. I
Right.
think if we can teach them and push them and have them apply that real life now, early, when they become adults.
Rather than later.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Where then they're in situation or they have like those high credit
Mhm.
card payments and they have all those
Yes.
things too, like going
Mhm,
on in their lives. Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think
mhm,
it's great. And then as far as like the advantage, just like anything
mhm,
else with that vulnerable population that they do get taken advantage of. And then one thing I just, financially is just another thing to teach like that independence. Like the more independence you can kind of teach. And then, like you said, that routine is really important. So, especially with dyslexia, being able to know the difference, it's like, okay, so like now I've kind of got a routine, like I've memorized it, even though it might be hard for them to distinguish, like, okay, wait, did I get that number flipped around or was that $41 and change? Is it 14? And being able to double check is really important. And even myself, like I'll go to the store and they just hand me change back and I just go, okay, great, have a great day. And I put it away and sometimes
mm,
without even looking. And I think that's such an
mhm.
important thing to take the time to be able to look. When you say you go to the store with them, do you always, when you do that and you're practicing, do you always bring money with you or do you sometimes use and teach like using like a debit or credit card?
So Jaden is now at the point where he does have a debit card.
Okay,
And let me tell you, he loves to
great.
play with that thing because he
Yeah.
has a nice little sticker on his credit card that looks like a Charizard. So every time
Okay,
he goes to
awesome.
pay, they're like, "Why is this kid paying with a Pokemon card?"
Yeah.
No, it's not a Pokemon card, it's his debit card.
That's great.
So he
They
loves to
choose
use
you.
it. Yes, he loves to use it. Every time he was like, "Oh, well, I got paid today. I can treat myself to, McDonald's or whatever." And we go through the drive-through. He always waits to see if he's going to get a response. And I love that for him because it gives him such a boost.
Yeah.
And he just loves it. He gets a kick out of it. And I love that for him.
I love
And
that he's playing into it. He's just like,
yeah,
let's see what they do.
yeah. So, we do. We do go to the store. He uses his debit card and he tracks, now, okay, well, I paid this much. I got paid, from his Voc Rehab, job trainings. He'll get paid and he knows, okay, well, this is how many hours I worked and does my paycheck match how many hours I worked? I want to save for a car. So I know I can't touch this amount of money and I can use this much. This is my fun money, like I can go out and eat. Or if I want to buy a pack of cards, he knows that he can do that. He goes every week, just about every week when he's able to. He goes to a local card shop to do like a tournament game. And it's $10
That's
buy-in. You pay $10. And
yeah,
so he knows he pays the $10 and he's gonna buy a soda. So I know when I check his finances every week, there's going to be a charge from the card shop for $13.50. I already know. It's there. And so that's his money. That's his thing. I need to make sure I can afford this every week. And when we go to the store, um, I am trying to teach the kids how to coupon. I'm not the best couponer, but I am trying to instill that into the boys as well. So we look for deals. There's one particular store that we like to go to, and, there's, reward points that you get when you buy certain items. And, you know, we're going to buy this and then we're going to get reward points back and we're going to roll it into your next transaction. And
right.
yeah, it's fun.
I think that's a great concept too. So I
Yes.
even think about the reward points. So that's great.
Yes.
What are with raising, a child on the spectrum and as well as dyslexia, what has changed your definition of success or independence?
um, is that's hard. I will say that for me, if you would have asked me a couple years ago, I would have told you what success looked like, graduating high school, getting a job, being independent. But now success for our family is just one day at a time, one step at a time, making a small goal and trying to achieve that small goal. And that's for us, right? Like when you watch your baby go through such an event, where they couldn't remember certain things. They couldn't walk. They couldn't talk. I'm sorry. It changes your whole life. And so for us, success is just one day at a time, just one day at a time. And
Yeah.
if you don't know how to do it today, you'll know tomorrow or the next, and you're eventually going to get there. And that's success for us. Just when it's your time, it's going to come.
I think that's beautiful. A lot of families I talk to, they look sometimes like at the bigger picture. It's like we've got to work on this and we've got to do this. So I think it's great to just
Mhm.
kind of break it up and just say, okay, like one day at a time, or like even just celebrating any small successes. Like
Mhm.
you had to regress so far back, like I'm starting to tear up too. But you had it there was so much regression, and that must have been so challenging to see him go back and, like, will he be able to do these things like he was able to do before, like walking and talking and then let alone reading. So I love that your approach,
Mhm.
and I could see, like, it's really changed your perspective on that too, and I think that that's a beautiful outlook on, working with him, and I think he's come so far, which is an amazing thing. So I
Yeah.
love all the opportunities that you're giving him. I think
Yeah.
it's wonderful.
He's amazing.
Yeah.
He is the definition of a warrior, and that's all that it is.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's awesome. I must have seen him before. I was like, I have to have, like, crossed paths with him before.
You so
And Pomco's is small and,
yes,
they're doing the penguin, project too. Like, I have 2 in there as before, so I'm sure we've crossed paths.
when you told me that when we were confirming this meeting, I was like, "Hold on. How is it that I've never met you before, and who are your kids?" Because
Right.
the Penguin Project is a passion of mine. I love the fact that Jaden has been in the show multiple years
Right.
in a row. So this is the first year that he's not actually going to be in the show, but he started with the Penguin Project when we lived out in Tampa.
Okay.
And when we moved here, he had went through the cardiac arrest. And afterwards, we found out about Flagler Playhouse doing the Penguin Project. And I said,
Right.
wait a minute, what is this? And it gave him such a boost to do it again. Oh my goodness, the women over there, let me tell you, they are so amazing. I love each and every one of them. From the bottom of my heart, I love them. And Jaden, he acted as an actor in the show a couple of times. And last year, he was a mentor. So he went on from saying, I'm going to be an actor to a mentor and now want to help kids just like me put on a play. And this year, he's not in it at all because he's working with Jerry over at the Flagler Playhouse to learn tech. And that's his voc rehab
Yeah, it's amazing.
placement right now. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I love those women. And so I'm still doing it, even though he's not in it. I'm still doing it. And my middle child, this is his first production. He's an actor this year.
That's
And
great.
he is my quiet one. He is quiet and he is shy. But you would not know that if you see him at rehearsals because
Wow.
he is outgoing. I'm like, who is this kid? Like, who is he? And it's just amazing. And so when you told me your kids were mentors, I said, how is it possible that I don't know them? Like, I know every single kid, because I've done the costumes for the past couple of years. And
And this
so,
is your first year too. Like, this is our first one, and then so they've done theater stuff
yeah.
before. Like I said, my oldest, like, he's been in theater since, I don't know, since, like, 5th grade or something
Mhm.
like that. So
Yeah.
he's been in theater a long time. So, yeah, so they
Yeah.
both done theater things. And my other one, my daughter I have another daughter who would love to do it, but she's too involved with cheer.
Mhm.
Otherwise, I'd
Okay.
have 3 of them in
Okay.
it.
So, yeah. So, but when you told me who your son
Yeah.
was, I was
Mhm.
like, well, I noticed him because he is tall and,
Yeah.
I noticed him. I
Yep.
immediately I
Yeah.
said, "Who is this cool looking kid? I don't
Yeah, he's
know
got a
him.
presence,
Who is he?"
and he's a giant.
Yes, he is. And so, yeah, he seems really cool. And then like I'm like, oh, I haven't
Yeah.
talked with him or with your daughter either because it's still in the beginning phase. We're still in the beginning rehearsals. But once it gets closer to doing costumes, I would have met them. So, um, and so Palm Coast is too tiny. It's too
It's too
tiny.
small. Like, we're small, but I love that part. I love how you just
Yeah.
kind of run into people, and I just love
Yes.
how we're such a like, a close community. Like, I think this is such a I
Mm-hmm.
love it, but I feel like there's so much room for growth, and there's so much room for more, and then you doing
There
things like,
is.
"Hey, I'm gonna have this book for, like, the young adults that,
Uh-huh.
they're not early readers, but they need maybe some extra
Mm-hmm.
support in reading and
Yeah.
something that they're interested in, but also, like, money is important for everybody." I think that's such an
For
important
everybody.
piece. And so, yeah, there's a lot of room for growth, but I do love how close we are in the communities. Any listeners of Penguin Project, and I already told Jerry that she needs to come on the podcast.
Oh my God, that would be amazing.
Podcast, like, I would love to advertise Penguin Project. I think it's a great program.
It's great.
And actually, Erica Mendez, who has been on some
Yes.
episodes with me,
Yes.
she got me into the Penguin Project. She's like, "Oh my gosh, your kids would love this." And then, so yeah, so we just
Yes.
how we start.
So I know Erica. And again, small world
Mhm.
because Erica volunteered or she worked in my daughter's VPK class last year.
Okay.
So it was really interesting because I'm working with her kids in Penguin Project. And she's like, this mom looks familiar. And so
I
I
might have been the analyst on one of those cases, just so you know.
oh, no. Okay.
It's possible I was in there too.
It's possible. So then, we go to Penguin Project one day and my daughter comes with me and she's like, "Hi, Miss Erica." And I'm like, "What's going on here?" And so
So funny.
it's really funny because, again, small community, we all kind of meet each other. And especially when have children who have, different neurodivergence, it's a community. It's a real
Right.
special needs community. And so just like how Sharon had told you about me, I know her from Vincent's Clubhouse. Jaden had went there a couple times and he knows Elijah. And so we've met in passing and every now and then we'll bump into each other at certain events. And then, we started, following each other on Facebook. And when she saw the book, she was like, "I need you to talk to Allie." Like,
Yeah.
and I was like,
She is
"Okay."
great at networking. Like, I think Sharon is awesome. Like, she's great at networking, and I'm very excited. So I know I just briefly touched on the nonprofit, like, that we're starting for the next
Okay.
chapter, and I'm so, so excited because it is geared towards I say it's young adults, but it's really adults, like, in
Yes.
general, with disabilities in our community, with autism or related disabilities, and I think it's gonna be a game changer. Like, I'm so excited that we're doing
I
that.
She kinda told me
Come
a
bring your
little bit
book
about
to our
it.
next workshop, like,
She
come help us.
she told me a little bit about it, and I was just
Mhm.
like, "Well, this sounds a little interesting,"
Yeah,
because, both Elijah and Jaden, they're similar in age. I think Elijah's 23, Jaden's 21, and, we at home, we're trying to do things where on the outside world, Jaden looks, like he's high functioning and he could potentially maybe one day live on his own. But at home, and me and Sharon had this conversation, at home, you see all the things that no, they couldn't live on
yeah,
their own.
looks different,
They can do certain things. He can do his own
right?
laundry. He takes out the garbage. He does the dishes. He's able to do certain things. He's able to track his finances. But he almost burned down my house making some ramen in the microwave. So could he live on his own? I don't think so.
Right, right. I feel the same way about my oldest, and I'm like, "There's no way that you are ready
Ready.
for, like" yeah, because I could see him doing that too, right.
Yes. And so when Sharon told me about it, I was like, I'm excited for your
Yeah,
next chapter and the
right.
organization next chapter because it sounds like something our community could really, really, really use.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about it. I think it's a great team, and I'm just excited to see what
Mhm.
our next chapter kind of brings to the community, so
Mhm.
So are there any other additional books or resources? Are you gonna plan to put out any more workbooks? Like,
Yes.
what are your thoughts on that?
Yes. So this is just the beginning, right? So this is just the beginning for me and Jaden. Like that's we have so many things that are on our plate here. We eventually want to add additional resources, add more books that decode as well. So, for example, your medical forms at a hospital, typically they're written on a bachelor degree level. So you go
Mhm.
into a hospital, you have to fill out this HIPAA form. I have to
Right.
sign this. What is it? Even for me and you, we're reading this like, this is way too many words. I don't understand this. I'm just signing my life away. Well, for our neurodivergent kids, and they need to know what they're signing, right? And so I am going to be working on other workbooks that talk about going into your future, going into medical appointments. So there's going to be a couple different series that come along
Mhm.
with this because I want them to have access
Right.
to that knowledge. And it's not, that there's not resources out there for kids. There are. However, there are just walls and walls and walls of text, and this brings it down. And I'm always going to start probably in about a fifth grade reading level. The books are always going to start there and then slowly increase to a high school or even a college level. And that's my hope, right? I want kids to be
Yeah.
exposed to this as early as possible. So if
Right.
we have a high schooler who is reading it, he knows or she knows that when I enter, my age of 21, I know exactly what I'm going to be dealing with. So if it's finances, if it's medical forms, if it's talking about guardianship, right? We have to think about that. Like in our community, a lot of us
That
become
is a
our
thought.
children's guardian or guardian
Mhm.
advocate or, power of attorney. Well, let's talk to our kids about that, but let's expose them to it early enough so they know when they get to a point where, they have to make the decision and someone has to talk to them. Are you able to be self-sufficient? Do you have to sign a form that says, yes, I want so and so to be my guardian? And
Yeah.
so I want them to be able to understand all those concepts. So there's going to be a whole slew of different things
I'm
on there.
excited. Yeah. No, I'm excited to
And
see what
so,
everything.
yes,
Yeah.
I made a website, and on the website, it's going to have additional resources that go along with the workbook. So maybe some budgeting packets, flashcards. You'll be able to download the tiles that I use in the book. If you don't have the book, you'll be able to go on there and use all the resources. And then I also have a little blog post in there, and I put in there resources that I've personally used with
Mhm.
Jaden over the years. So things like Speechify, Touch Type Read, have Learning Ally is a big one in elementary schools. And a lot of people don't realize that if you are in public school, every child is eligible for a Learning Ally account where it gives you access to audiobooks
That's
so that
interesting.
you can listen to them and follow along as it reads it to you. So a lot of people don't realize that if you have a child who has dyslexia or has some struggling reading concerns, that they're eligible for that. And so that is a resource that schools need to share with other parents
Right.
so that they can give access to that. So the website has a whole slew of stuff on there.
Yeah, it's great. I'll definitely share your website in our show notes, so
Yeah.
it will be in the description. I think that's
And
great.
then yeah, and then Jaden's even on there. I opened a section on my website for young creators. And so Jaden and Nicholas is my middle child, they do some designs and they do t-shirts and mugs and stuff like that. And so I put it
Yeah.
on there and that's their business. That's their own little business. And they're becoming little entrepreneurs and it's on there. So if you want to support them, you can purchase something and you'll get something in the mail and you can look at all the things that they have designed so far. And so we're
Yeah.
excited about that. Yeah.
No, that's very exciting. Wow, that's awesome. Thanks so
Yeah.
much for sharing that. Is there anything before we sign off? And I feel like we could just continue this conversation forever. There's so much to talk about here.
Mhm.
What is something that you want to leave for our listeners before we sign off?
My gosh. Oh my goodness. I think that's so hard. Okay.
It's such a loaded question. I know.
It is. It really is because there's so many things that, depending on what you need, you can say. But I think, just take it one day at a time. Just because you're different, or just because your child may be different, doesn't
Mhm.
mean that you're less than and you are capable of doing amazing things. So I think that's very important for teens and young adults to know because they're probably struggling in school right now or struggling in adulthood. and they feel like they don't have the resources, but we see you. We know what you have been through or potentially have been through. You'll get there. Just take it
Right.
one day at a time. I think, you know, there's people out there that can support you and can help you, and there's a larger community out there that is willing to welcome you in and help you along the way. You just have to hold on and uh, and enjoy the ride.
All right, Priscilla, thank you so much for coming on. It has been an absolute pleasure. And I can't wait to see what you're going to do next. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited. Oh, and I wanted to say something real quick for all of your followers. If they are interested in the book and they want to purchase the book, I will offer a 20% discount on our website. It will be ABA Mom. If you put that discount code in there, you'll get 20% off your book purchase. So
Perfect.
you can go
That's
on
awesome.
there.
Yeah, thank you so
And
much for that. I'll definitely, yep, and it's going to be in our show notes too. So
perfect.
thank you so much, Priscilla.
Thank you so much.